Hello and welcome to this recorded interview by the Jerusalem Press Club. I am Jonathan Beck. This is the fourth installment in our series of new Israeli voices, in which we interview new voices in Israeli politics and the public sphere. Some of these people are candidates in parties. Some of them, like our guest today, are competing to be candidates in parties. Some of them are just activists and people who are in all sorts of civic movements, etc. Our guest today is Avi Dabush. A brief word about Avi. He was born and raised in a right-wing Sephardi family in Ashkelon. He was educated in the religious system and went to Yeshivat Or Etzion, headed by the famous Rabbi Chaim Druckmann. He was active in the mid-90s in the struggle against the Oslo Accords, but since then he started a critical journey that led him to a different political path. After serving in the IDF in the Armored Corps, he worked with children on the autistic spectrum and later established a school and served as its principal for 3 years. Since the year 2002, he initiated and was involved in diverse activity in civil society and in Israeli politics. He worked in the Shatil organization, the knowledge base of the New Israel Fund, for more than a decade. During Operation Protective Edge in 2014, Dabush led the establishment of the Movement for the Future of the Western Negev, demanding a diplomatic agreement with the Gaza Strip. Between the following year, 2015 and 2019, he was a candidate in the Meretz primaries, where he competed for leadership of the party and led Meretz operations in periphery communities. Since 2019, Dabush served as CEO of Rabbis for Human Rights. In the year 2024, he was ordained as a rabbi. He's also a winner of the New Israel Fund's Human Rights Prize in the UK and the Sami Michael Prize for Equality and Social Justice. Since 2008, Dabush has been a resident of the Gaza periphery, including several years also in the city of Sderot. On October 7, 2023, he was with his family in their home in Kibbutz Nirim. On October 8, a day after, the family was evacuated and they returned to their home in the kibbutz only in August 2025, nearly a full 2 years later. Hello, Avi, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Jonathan.
So I'm going to ask you the usual 4 questions that I asked all our interviewees about Israel and foreign relations, Israel internally and Israel's future. But first I want a small special question just for you as a resident of Nirim. Did anything in your perception and your worldview change after October 7?
The answer is yes and no. My values didn't change. Of course, I'm still, and maybe even more, talking about peace, justice, human rights, equality. But of course, the path to bring that into our reality, we have the vision and the values and the reality. Of course, it changed. If before October 7th, I was asked, can we make an agreement with Hamas? I would say I would prefer not, but this is the entity that is there, and we must find a way to have a stable security and peace agreement. Now I don't think like that anymore, but still, and even more, my obligation to those values are really deepened.
Okay, thank you for this. Let's do the full round of the questions. So our first question is Israel and the world. You can either start by Israel and the region, including, you said about Hamas, but I would also like you to address what you think Israel should do with Lebanon and Hezbollah. Also regarding peace talks with, countries we're at peace with, like Saudi and the UAE, Jordan, or the peace with Egypt. And also Israel and its traditional allies in the West, European countries and the United States. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's a huge. I will start with the vision. I consider myself a Zionist, and of course, it's not a very easy thing to say nowadays. If we are talking about Jewish communities and other political left-wing communities outside of Israel. And everyone is asking me to explain, and in the most simple way, I believe in our right, in the right of the Jewish people to have a country of our own. But part of this vision, and I'm talking specifically about the Declaration of Independence, but a lot more than that, is being part of the family of nations and being in full relationships. Of course, it's a lot of the times it's complicated relationships, but with other nations in the Middle East and outside of the Middle East. So maybe it's so simple to say, and in the declaration it's very simple and clear. But in the last years, it's not very clear to Israel government and I guess to the Israel public because it sometimes it seems like a popular notion that everyone is against us, they doesn't understand us or even hate us, anti-Semitic and so on. So I believe the opposite. I believe that we must find a way, again, with all the complexity of history, of our specific history and the Israeli history, to find our way in this region and those nations. That's very general. I would like to say a few words about the Middle East. I have a dream, and my dream is that we will have open borders to the Middle East or open windows and doors and so on. My family came from Syria and Libya, and again, that's the vision of the declaration to be part of the flourishment of the Middle East. And for me, this is very important. Maybe it seems semantic to people, but when we are in war inside of Lebanon or even in Iran or other places, it's so important to say and of course to mean that we prefer peace and we want peace, and sometimes we have no other choice than to use force in order to secure ourselves and fight for our security. But we still pray and push for and do whatever we can to make peace. And this is in a lot of ways it had changed since October 7th. Again, maybe of course it's trends that were in the Israeli society before October 7th, but it became more clear that you can say, no, I don't believe, I don't trust any of those people. I don't believe in them. Nobody there is innocent, and the only way is war and force and so on. I don't believe in that. Being living on the border of Gaza with my children and deciding to come back, and this is not an easy decision, is from the place that I do understand the limits of power and I do want to push for an agreement. And we saw that after so many days and years, and after so many slogans of complete victory and so on, we are still on the border of Gaza. Nirim is a kilometer and a half from Khan Yunis, and from the yellow line, the new yellow line, there is Hamas that bigger as it used to be before October 7th, and recruiting people, have digging tunnels, and like having its routine and power in Gaza. So we must understand the limits of power, and the only way in the human history and in our history to end conflicts and to have stability for my children and also for the children of Gaza, because I do want them to have security in order to make some peace in the future generations. We need to work in diplomatic solutions. So this is also a general thing about the Middle East. I do want to say one more thing, and I can see it especially from the prisma of the Jewish people abroad in what they used to call the diaspora. I meet a lot of communities that are more, let's say, progressive, left wing, and so on, as a CEO of Rabbis for Human Rights. And there is kind of a gap and a crack between the young generation or generations and the other people in the communities, because a lot of the young people doesn't understand why to have relationships with Israel or even feel ashamed of Israel. So we can say that they don't understand, and again, it's part of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel trends and so on, and maybe, but that's the reality, and we need to work with that. So, for example, in Rabbis for Human Rights, many people, many of those people can find a way to be critical about Israel and specifically about the occupation and its policy, but also love Israel. And don't, we are not, covering all Israel in black colors and saying this is the worst place and so on. There are a lot of beautiful things and people inside of Israel, and still we can be critical and even part of the struggle in order to change Israel. And maybe the last thing is, Berl Katzenelson said during the Second World War, it's like in Hebrew, it's בזכות המבוכה בגנות הטיח, like in favor of being of the confusion, like we are in a very confused era, and of course I understand that, and many Israelis are in that place, and young people and so on, but against the cover up. So you need to see reality as it is. You need to see what is happening, the trends in the US, in the Republic camp, and also the Democratic. You need to see the trends in Europe and in other places in the world, and you need to influence that and to cover up and only say we are right, and I don't want to listen to anyone. It is a problem. So I believe in responsibility. I believe in being pragmatic and wise, and I believe also in the morality, the humanistic values, the Jewish values, and the Zionist values that do speak about being in a more just place, and being part of the mind and sphere of peace.
Okay, but I mean, let's take it into a more less abstract sort of thinking. For example, in Lebanon, I've seen myself interviews with Lebanese Christians, Maronites, Sunni Lebanese people who are saying we have no issue with Israel, but Hezbollah has dragged us into this war, etc. Now, clearly, I mean, short of destroying Hezbollah, as Israel did not destroy Hamas, Hezbollah as a Shiite organization exists. Now, you could probably maybe say that in the past month and a half, Israel is embedded inside Lebanon and is, from their perspective, occupying territory. But before that, I mean, since the year 2000, when Israel pulled out, Hezbollah did not have a territorial dispute with Israel. I think the Sheba Farms is a very small territory that was used as an excuse from them. So, how far can those humanistic values go when you have an enemy that is not going to make peace with you no matter what you do?
Yeah, of course. That's why I didn't talk about the organizations, like in our case in Gaza, the Hamas, and I talked about the countries and the people. So you need to have new kind of trends and new kind of streams inside the population and also inside of the Middle East in order to push away the extremists and be in a partnership and making each other stronger with the people that do want to have some kind of a peace. Of course, everyone has its own mind. So in the example of Gaza, if we will work more closely with Egypt, if we will work more closely, in my opinion, with the Palestinian Authority and others that, again, they are not in our mind, if there is one. Of course, we are also very pluralistic, but they do abandon terror or force, and they do want to have relationships with Israel. So you need to find those forces. And again, with Lebanon, it has changed in the last years. And we see now that the government there tried to push, of course, part of it, tried to push away Hezbollah. So again, we saw that only force cannot bring that into life, into reality. So we need to find a way to exclude Hezbollah and to make it weaker and weaker in terms of financial and in other terms, and also bring in more forces like this government and other, maybe the Syrians and others that do align with our interest right now.
Okay, I mean, I still Hezbollah has been much weakened, but Lebanon has been unable to even push away
Yeah,
not the
of
organization,
course.
but even the Iranian ambassador.
Of course. So you
So
need to have more kind of, I don't know, UN forces or American forces or others in order to solve that. It wouldn't be solved only with the force of the IDF. That's for sure and for fact, I think. I think that we can see
okay,
this.
even though you still speak of a forceful solution essentially there, even if it's other forces like the UN or the US, this they would still. I mean,
It can be a bridge, of course. There are a lot of types of those forces. Right now we have a bad example of UNIFIL there. So we need to find forces that do have a way to push Hezbollah away and to disarm it and so on. But again, not with the force that the IDF is invested right now.
okay. Let's move into Israel. I think the biggest issues, apart from the setting aside foreign relations and security, are ultra-Orthodox enlistment to the military, which also came to the fore following the beginning of the October 7 war. And before that, the judicial reform. Um, there are other satellite issues, but there's also a lot of work to be done inside Israel. Can you say where do you think what should happen in those? You can also, if you want to discuss, the issue of a commission of inquiry,
Mm.
whether a state commission or a national commission or a party-based commission, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
We must say, and I guess most of Israelis will agree that we are in a crisis. And when you are in a crisis, it's always, or deep crisis, it's always about identity. So in a way, we have this dispute about our identity. Is it, again, like in the Declaration of Independence, democratic, liberal, secular? It's not the meaning that there is no a lot of Israelis, of course, are traditional and religious and so on, but secular in the way that we compose our public life and so on. Or we are something else, something that is more messianic, something that is more in with a monopoly of Orthodox way and halachic way, and also very, very like centralist. So right now, this is the dispute, and all of other issues come from that. So we talked about the judicial reform, and again, the government, from its interest, saying we don't need that. We are not talking about democracy in liberal terms. We are talking about the majority, and if we have the majority, we want to do whatever we want. And if there is a criticism from the court, the Supreme Court, and so on, it must be very, very narrow. So again, for me, part of its interest, it's to support what is happening in the West Bank and support the partnership with the ultra-Orthodox. And for that, you need another Supreme Court. So, of course, I'm part of the struggle against the judicial reform. I established the demonstrations in Beersheba, which is really interesting, in January 23. It's really interesting because it's a very ultra right-wing city, big city in terms of the Negev, the capital of the Negev. and we brought many thousands of people. It became the hugest, the most huge demonstrations in the south of Israel ever. Um, so for me, this is part of my mission to get the people in the peripheries that usually are more traditional, more conservative, more right-wing voters in order to say we have another values, even though maybe we vote for this government, or we are not with the liberals in all terms and so on. There's still a line that withdraw if you are going against our freedom of speech, or freedom to think whatever we want, and have another streams of political thinking. We are against it. Um, so for me, this is really important to understand. About the ultra-Orthodox, yeah, of course, I agree that before October 7th, it was a big dispute in Israel, but not such it is right now. A lot of you could find you can find people like opposition now, opposition voters that will say, but it's not so important, and even against recruiting them to the army, because it will change the army in so many ways, and it will push away women and so on, gender issues and so on. But right now, there is a strong sentiment for that. I can say that I'm a father of a soldier that now is on the border of Lebanon, and there is like a very human instinct that you are saying, I'm sending my most precious people, my children, to the army to be in a dangerous situations and to fight in order to secure all of the Israelis, ultra-Orthodox, Arabs, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, right wing, left wing, and so on. So we need all the people to be part of it. And of course, the IDF now is bringing more the like the professional angle. We need them. If the IDF was okay, we are waiting for you, government, to say what you will choose to do. Now they are saying no, we need them in order to be in that situation. And of course, I want times of peace. We talked about it, but it seems that we need more soldiers. So right now, it tears the Israeli politics and public in another way that we are used to see the camps. You know, the right wing, the left wing, the center, the center left, and so on. And maybe that's one of the reasons that we can see change of the polls from the beginning of 2023. And we can see that the coalition right now is getting something like 50 or 52 seats. And the opposition, of course, again, by these polls, should win or get the majority of the seats.
Okay, thank you for this. Setting aside maybe the talk of opposition and coalition in the blocks, do you think, as a candidate in the party that combines Meretz and Labor, the Hademokratim party, the Democratic Party, do you think there has been a shift in the entire attitude of the entire Israeli public? I mean, my theory is that people today can vote to one of about 10 or 12 parties, and neither will be left wing in any real sense. There will be some with the coalition and with the Likud under Netanyahu, and some against him. But you can certainly not say not about Bennett, not about Lieberman. In many, I don't think you can say about Lapid or Eisenkot that they are, classically left wing. So,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're part of a very shrunken political camp nowadays after the October 7
Yeah.
war?
That's the reality, and we need to understand it. It's a process that didn't begin in the last years, and even on October 7th. The left in Israel, I was part of Meretz, which was maybe the last Zionist left um, in Israel, and now the Democrats are something else. We don't. I can't say I know exactly what the face of the democracy will be. It's also will determine in those elections and those primaries. Are we going to those places against the occupation and social democratic agenda and like very, very classic left, or we will try to be more in the center and being more about security, like Yair Golan is, of course, is a soldier, is an army professional. Um, so yeah, there is this process not only in Israel, I must say, of course, about the left, and I really believe in the dynamic of history and reality, and I believe that in our life, in the yet to become the years that will come, we will see a shift in that, and people will try again to find solutions from the left, or again, kind of a new combination or up to date left. And I really believe again in the values, and this is so important. And I know that most of us human beings tend to be very pragmatic, and this is very good because we need to live in the reality. But also, we tend to lose the core values, or not really see that in our daily life, and getting lost in so many details and agendas and personas and so on. So I really believe in those values. And again, in so many ways, I feel people are asking me what made your shift from the right wing to the left wing. And I'm telling them that I grew up in a family, again, religious, Orthodox, right wing, Mizrahi oriented, came from Libya and Syria, that was really invested in respecting every human being. And again, they didn't call it human rights or even justice or equality, but it was very evident that we must respect every human being as equal. Again, even they didn't use this word. Is if he is Arabic or Jewish or I don't know, left wing, right wing, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, and so on, religious, secular, and so on. So for me, that's the core value. And from that, I'm building to peace, to equality, when we are talking about the economy, equality of opportunities to our children, and so on. So I guess I believe that if we can see it globally, what is happening, because there is, of course, crisis also in the liberal democracies around the world, but also in Israel, the left solutions or ideas or values will be more like affiliated or attractive to people in the years to come. But it needs to be like, we need to have courageous people that will go to the periphery, to the Arab society, to the Mizrahi society, to the Russian speaking, and so on, and try to recruit them and also be infected from there. Like, you need to have a real conversation. It's not only about I know everything and you should be aligned with my values and ideas and people and parties, but the way is to have, like, I must say, that Herut did, like the establishment of the Likud. I just had a podcast with Meir Shitrit. He was a mayor at the age of 24 in Yavne, and he told me that in 1974, and he told me that he went to Mapai. First, he went to the Labour Party, the left in Israel, in order to be part of it, but they didn't even want to talk with him. So the Likud opened its gate and become something really different from it used to be, like the party of Menachem Begin and the Lechi, the Etzel, and so on. So we need to have something like that, some process like that, and then we will be much more relevant to the majority of the society in Israel.
Okay, thank you very much for this. Now for the final question is basically your vision for the future, and also with an emphasis, if you will, about whether you think anything should be done about Israel's political system, also the party system, etc. What do you think is the most urgent thing that Israelis should be talking about?
Wow, it's hard because there are so many things that we need to fix. But maybe this is the first thing is to understand, when you are again in a crisis, you must admit that. Like even in Judaism, when you want to, what we're saying, לחזור בתשובה, like to fix yourself in a way, tikkun, not tikkun olam, but yourself, to fix yourself or to improve yourself. So you need to first say to yourself what I did. I did wrong, that and that and that. So this is the first step. I really believe, and I can see in polls that most Israelis are understanding that, but are really confused about the solutions or about the leaders that can solve the problems. So I guess for me, this is the first thing. And the other is to fix our language in a way that we can talk to each other, we can influence each other, and we can build together another future. Well, I mean that I can talk, of course, with my people inside, if I'm talking politically, inside the party, the Democrats, and I can talk with the people in the coalition, inshallah, the future coalition, but also with the people that are in the opposition. Again, if I'm talking about the electorate specifically, but also the leaders. We need to find a way, because there is a broken discourse and language in the Knesset, in the government, in the society. And we need to find, again, a way to talk to each other, even though we are not agreeing, and a way to have, there was a Prime Minister, Levi Eshkol, that said, I'm compromising and compromising until I get what I want. So we need to learn again what does it mean to be in that place of compromising in order to get what we want, which is good for the majority of the people of Israel, of course.
Okay, is there anything you think is completely off the agenda and that Israelis should be talking about? This is like a question from trigonometry. What is the subject that...
Yeah, of course, the black swan. Environment. It used to be a big trend in Israel and in the world. I started my steps in the civil society in Israel in the environmental movement, and this is so important in so many ways. If I'm taking that perspective, we are fighting each other, Jews and Arabs between the river to the sea and inside the Israeli society and so on. But the global crisis is much bigger than all of us, and we should fight it together and be together in that struggle.
Okay, thank you so much for this conversation, Avi Dabush.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll be in touch later before the election. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.
you. Bye.